Mainline Pikmin games are rare and precious things. But what if those agonising waits were done for? What if Pikmin was about to go absolutely off the leash? Welcome, glorious people, to Nintendo Forecast, the channel for research, measurable, accountable forecasts of the world's least predictable video game company. Every mainline Pikmin title has been made by the same team, Entertainment, Planning and Development Group 10, or EPD 10, and Nintendo's HQ in Kyoto. Though there has been some restructuring at Nintendo HQ over the years, it seems this same group has been making games pretty consistently. Here's the problem. EPD 10 produced the Super Mario Bros. And Super Mario Maker games. Even if you say Super Mario Maker underperformed relative to expectations, it still sold more than any prior Pikmin game could even dream of, around 8 million so far. And even though there hasn't been a new Super Mario Bros. Game in over a decade, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe still sells hugely, and is a port, and is even packed in as an option with the 2023 Mario Bundle. Let's be totally clear. EPD 10 produce some of the biggest selling titles in the history of the games medium, and Pikmin. Small wonder that there are gaps between Pikmin games, because Pikmin cannot ever be their only priority. But other franchises, even relatively small ones, have found solutions to this. Outside companies who can take on these beloved franchises with only a core team at EPD supporting. Grezzo took over the Zelda handheld games and then the 2D titles. Next Level Games have taken on Luigi's Mansion. Way Forward took on Advance Wars, and, of course, Mercury Steam have taken over the 2D Metroid series to tremendous acclaim, with Samus Returns and then Metroid Dread, and now a rumoured third title. Letting other developers take on one of their core franchises is a huge step for Nintendo, and when the other studios have some success, it very often leads to them developing many more games in the series. So, the question becomes, is Pikmin 4 EPD's next game? The timeline fits. Super Mario Maker 2 was in 2019, so it's been 4 years since they produced something. But there is another studio nobody's talking about that could be shouldering the heaviest burdens on this game. 18. 18 produced Pikmin 3 Deluxe. They didn't just port it. As with Grezzo and Zelda, and as with Mercury Steam on Metroid, they started out with porting, but they had a team dedicated to, in their words, planning, developing and adjusting additional elements. In other words, there is a team outside EPD who have worked with EPD on developing a core Pikmin experience already, albeit in a small way. But isn't that exactly how Nintendo often likes to wet the feet of collaborators who they've trusted to take on core EPD properties? Even Retro Studios were proving themselves with a Metroid Prime remake before they took on Metroid Prime 4. So who exactly are 18? They've been around for years and have even produced some great games with Nintendo before, including Kurokurin, my new Nintendo Switch Online obsession. Before Pikmin 3 Deluxe, they were a support studio on numerous Nintendo titles, including Kirby's Star Allies released in 2018, and Animal Crossing Welcome Amiibo on 3DS. They are growing and have offices in Sapporo and Tokyo, and they usually produce quite a volume of games, easily having the capacity to produce multiple games at once. What's striking is that in the last few years, since Pikmin 3 Deluxe, their output has been relatively light. They produced 3 titles in the 2020s, which is no slouch, but they were often producing 3 a year before, and there is a curious note on their list of games saying that some of their contracts with game companies prevent them from stating what they're working on. It would be unusual to have to withhold their involvement on a game that is pre-announced, but perhaps not a gigantic stretch of imagination for a company like Nintendo. In particular, any sign of outsourcing Pikmin might lead to worry and doubt that the game might not live up to the lofty standards of previous entries. Plus, Nintendo are notoriously secretive. Speaking for myself, I have no such fear. We have seen with Grezzo, Mercury Steam, Retro, Next Level Games, and others outside the core offices of Japan, that other developers can take on such properties and do brilliantly while still working very closely with the producers at Nintendo. And Nintendo has stated that they want to be working on newer games, so it makes absolute sense to find a home for a franchise that is up and running. But the key part of this, the part that I haven't seen anyone talking about, is, hey, are those Pikmin collecting a like button? Oh, what wise, benevolent and beautiful people they are. And can I just say on an unrelated note that you were looking quite wise, benevolent and beautiful today yourself. I don't know what made me think of that. Anyway, if 18 are the new dedicated full-time Pikmin developers, the chances skyrocket of another Pikmin game in significantly less than 10 years, perhaps as few as 3 or 4 years. Even if they don't take the franchise on full-time and alternate with other titles, it's very possible that Nintendo would want to keep the relationship with 18 going and ask them to develop a different franchise in between Pikmin games, a bit like Next Level Games, having alternated in recent years between developing Luigi's Mansion games and various sports titles. A game every 6 or 7 years in the Pikmin franchise would still be incredibly welcome compared to the gaps we've had so far. You see, Pikmin doesn't have a huge audience, but it does have a deep and reliable audience who seem to turn up most of the time, and Nintendo hasn't stopped pushing the franchise in recent years with Hey Pikmin and Pikmin Bloom. Plus, as Nintendo expands into films and theme parks, colourful mascot characters like the Pikmin still have lots of potential to appeal to those audiences, even if they're not as universally recognised as Mario or Pikachu. So how likely is it? What is the likelihood that 18 is involved in the development of Pikmin 4? I'm going to say this is actually quite high. Given their history as a support studio and their history with the Pikmin franchise, it just makes sense for them to be involved in a new Pikmin title. But what is the likelihood of them leading development? Honestly, this could go either way because there's no definite proof either way. I'll put this as a medium, 50% chance. But if, and this is only an if, but if 18 are the next Pikmin developer, we really need to come back and talk about the likelihood of more Pikmin games in the future. And if EPD aren't working primarily on Pikmin, what game could they possibly be developing right? Oh,